Who did he bring into our home while I was at my mom's? It's strange how you can go through life thinking everything is fine, only to have your entire world flipped upside down in the blink of an eye. That's exactly what happened to me. For 5 years I thought I was living a dream. My husband, my baby, and our small family in the little house we built together. We had our issues, sure, like every relationship does, but we worked through them. We talked. We communicated, or at least I thought we did. In my mind, everything was fine. We were solid, a team, a couple navigating the ups and downs of life. But then, in the span of just a few weeks, everything unraveled, and I realized I didn't know him at all. It started with something small, almost trivial, a feeling in my gut that I couldn't shake. I'd been noticing little changes in him for months, even before we had our baby. He was always busy with work, constantly traveling, glued to his phone. I tried not to mind. After all, he was building his career, providing for us, and I wanted to support that. But the longer things went on, the more I felt like I was losing him. He became distant, less engaged, and even though I tried to ignore it, a nagging feeling started to settle in. The birth of our baby changed everything. We'd always talked about how we wanted to raise our child together, how we wanted to be a solid, loving family. But when the baby arrived, our relationship was tested in ways we hadn't expected. We fought about everything: sleepless nights, dirty diapers, whose turn it was to handle the baby, and whose job it was to take care of the house. What had once felt like a partnership now felt like a constant battle. But I figured that was normal, right? The first year of parenthood is supposed to be hard, but with every passing month I felt like we were growing further apart. I thought some time away from each other might help. I needed a break, a chance to reconnect with myself and my family. So I decided to visit my mom for a few weeks. It wasn't just for me, it was for us. I thought a little space would give us both time to reflect, breathe, and come back stronger. But looking back, maybe it wasn't just the distance that did the damage. Maybe it was already too late by then. Before I left, there were a few things that caught my attention, things I brushed off at the time. He had this assistant at work, a woman who, according to him, was just a coworker. He never mentioned her much, but when he did, there was something in his voice, something I couldn't quite place, that didn't sit right. He would speak about her with a little too much enthusiasm. She'd send him emails late at night or text him at odd hours, and while he always reassured me that it was just work, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. The real cracks started to show when I left for my mom's. I expected him to miss me, to at least show some concern for the baby being away from him. But when we spoke on the phone, I could tell something had shifted. He sounded distracted, distant, almost annoyed that I called to check in. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just his way of dealing with the absence. But as the days went on, his calls became shorter and his responses colder. When I asked how he was doing, he'd say, "Fine, just busy." And that was it. Then one evening, after a particularly curt phone call, something inside me urged me to check the security cameras we had set up around the house. I don't know why I did it. I wasn't the type of person to snoop, but something didn't feel right. Maybe it was the way he'd been avoiding me or the way he'd been acting around his phone. My gut was screaming at me, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. What I saw on that camera screen turned my world upside down. There she was, his assistant, standing in our living room, laughing with him as though they were the only two people in the world. The way they interacted, flirtatious, comfortable, was unmistakable. My stomach dropped to my feet as the realization hit me like a freight train. It wasn't just work. There was something more going on between them. I felt sick. Physically, emotionally, every part of me was in agony. But there was more. I watched as she touched his arm, just a casual touch, but it meant everything. A quiet confirmation of everything I'd been denying for months. In that moment I knew. There was no denying it anymore. My husband, the man I thought I knew, was betraying me. I didn't know what to do with this new knowledge. Part of me wanted to pretend I hadn't seen it, to make excuses for him. But another part of me, the part that was so tired of being lied to, couldn't ignore it. I had to confront him. When I called him, I could hear the hesitation in his voice. But I was calm. I had to be. I told him I knew. I told him what I had seen. And just like that, the wall of denial came crashing down. He denied it at first, of course. "You're imagining things," he said. "There's nothing going on." But even his voice wavered. I pushed him. I needed answers. He then changed his story, saying that she was just a friend, that there was nothing inappropriate about their friendship. But I wasn't stupid. I had seen what I saw. That's when the truth came spilling out. He admitted to everything: the emotional affair, the flirtation, the late-night texts, the meetings in our house when I wasn't there. I wanted to scream, to tear my heart out and throw it in his face. How could he do this? How could he betray me like this in my own home? I had given him everything: my love, my trust, my body, my soul, and this is what I got in return. He blamed me, of course. He blamed me for not being there enough, for not noticing how lonely he was. He said I had been so focused on the baby that I neglected him, that he needed someone to make him feel appreciated. I wanted to punch him for saying those words, to make him feel the pain I was feeling. But I didn't. I just stood there, numb, as the life I thought I was living crumbled to dust. But the worst part wasn't the physical betrayal. It was the emotional one. He shared parts of himself with her that he had never shared with me. They spoke in ways we never did: deep conversations, inside jokes, intimate thoughts I didn't even know existed. I had been the one who was supposed to be his partner, his confidant, his best friend. And now here I was, completely replaced. The most painful part: he wasn't even sorry. Not really. He apologized because he knew he had to, but the words didn't mean anything. He was still seeing her. He was still hiding things from me. And when I tried to fight for our marriage, when I tried to salvage whatever was left, he just shut me out. He wanted out. He wanted a divorce. And just like that, our life together, the one I had so carefully built, was over. Now I'm here trying to piece my life back together. Some days it feels impossible. I'm trying to learn how to trust again, trying to figure out how to move forward with a broken heart. Every morning I wake up and look at my baby, and I realize I can't go back to the way things were. I'm different now. He changed me. But I know one thing: I will be okay. I have to be, because I'm strong. And if you've ever gone through something like this, if you've ever had your trust shattered and your heart broken into a million pieces, just know you're not alone. It's hard, but we will get through this.